Hey friends, this is Gavin Hardkiss from Hardkiss Music in San Francisco, and you're listening to the Liverpool Connection podcast.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Liverpool Connection podcast. I'm your host, Dazza. This is my football and music episode where I bring on a musician, a DJ, producer to talk about music, but to talk about football. And today, I'm very honoured because, as I say, everybody who knows me knows I DJ and I love my breaks, I love my house. So it's an honour to have my next guest on even though he's a Man United supporter. But that's okay because we've had such an amazing fierce rivalry with Man United from day one, and it's great to actually get to talk to somebody about the matches, about what the rivalry means to them. He's label boss of TCR, which is Thursday Club Recordings in the UK, and he's the breakbeat don, Rennie Pilgrem. I will put some links up on the episode later when it finally goes out, so you can check out his music and stuff. But welcome, Rennie.
Hello,
It's great to have you, mate. We've
great
got
to
lots
be
to
here.
talk about.
Sorry,
We've got lots to talk about.
good. I look forward to it.
So I'd like to start out with the music first.
Hmm.
Um, your musical roots. I know your dad was a jazz trumpeter.
Yeah.
So, like, what was playing in your house as like a young lad?
Well, I guess I grew up listening to a lot of jazz that he was playing, and when I actually started life as well as playing the piano, I was a sax player. So I started listening to jazz and funk that had a lot of sax in it. Say people like War or Tower of Power or Earth, Wind and Fire, that kind of stuff, and Stevie Wonder, and then Prince. So kind of funk, dub, jazz, I guess, was what I grew up listening to.
And when did the like electronic side come for you? Was it early age?
No, not really. I think I grew up in Kent in the countryside. I grew up in an oast house that's like where you would be an old farmhouse where you would roast hops. So my bedroom was round. It's not particularly relevant, but when I moved to London, basically started trying to make electronic music maybe when I was about 23, 24, and basically started mucking around with drum machines and sequences and stuff. I guess um, there was a double album called The Techno Sound of Detroit, which I don't know was whether was big in your side of the pond, but that kind of opened up a lot of people to the sound of house and techno. And so if you were making embryonic electronic music, that was kind of the way you were going. And then one day I met a DJ called LSD who'd heard I was making some music with a guy called Richard Fake, and we got introduced to LSD, who heard that we were making stuff, and he started playing us, I guess, early rave where house was being mixed with hip hop beats. So, along with a very old friend of mine called Nick Scott, we formed Rhythm Section. So we came into that. I mean, 89 maybe is when we started doing that.
Mhm. And you played quite a lot of the raves early doors, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah, certainly did. And that was a wild, I mean, really, certainly in this country, biggest explosion of culture since the 60s, I would say, or since punk. But in many ways, unlike punk, people were actually making music, pressing up their own records, and it was very DIY. So yeah, we started playing at all the big raves because we had a couple of kind of underground rave hits, and we would play live, fairly live. I always used to try and insist on playing keyboards live because I was a keyboard player. Um, and yeah, we played at all the big raves. We played at raves where there were people like Carl Cox and Sasha and Prodigy, Alternate, you name it. And it was an amazing time. I mean, I guess this was in the days of it was very loved up and ease everywhere, and a lot of very kind of a lot of good vibes, shall we say, before the drugs started changing and getting a bit dodgy. So yeah, very, very, very exciting times. That was definitely.
That's one good thing for me. Living over there as well, but like, I experienced back home the
Mhm.
rave early on, and then I
Yeah.
moved, experienced the US rave scene.
Again. Yeah.
Florida was absolutely like insane. I mean,
Yeah.
Sasha Diddy played their first gig there in Orlando. Chemical
Mhm.
Brothers, Dust Brothers at the time, and I'm
Yeah.
sure you played early on there
Yeah.
too, didn't
Yeah. Yeah. We used to play. We When we stopped doing rhythm section, kind of when the music got, it was sort of when it got in between rave and drum and bass, so like 150 BPM, we weren't really feeling it anymore. We sort of stopped. But a few years later, we got a request to play as rhythm section in Orlando. So
you?
rather than say we disbanded 5 years ago, we went and did a gig. It was sort of slightly convoluted in that I'd started TCR, and I started a series called the New Electro Sound of London, and it had Nick Newton Scott on there and also LSD. So we kind of went over as a threesome and then played as kind of rhythm section Mark II, because the other guy, Richie T, I think he was in California around that sort of time. So yeah, so I experienced the Orlando and Florida rave scene. I actually did my first DJ gig there. I'd never done a gig before, and the first gig was to about 2,000 people. So I had a track called A Place Called Acid out. So it was very exciting. It was different to the English rave scene, but it was also clearly blowing up and coming from the underground, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was a lot more pacifiers,
I was going
dummies.
to say that there was a lot of that going on. Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite bizarre because again, coming from where I'm from, it's like it was just like you took your pills and you know you had a good time, and then when I came over
Mm,
here and I see a bunch of people like with dummies in their mouths, I was like,
yeah.
what's going on here?
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
does this look weird until somebody told me it so they don't like bite their lips off and all that. And
Oh, is that what it was?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's people taking ecstasy and then so
Mm.
they're not chewing their gums off. And I was like,
Ooh.
okay, it makes sense, but it looks a bit
Yeah.
silly,
It
all
did
right.
look it was a bit of an eye opener, yeah. But
I
it was good seeing a scene, kind of a different scene, but also a big explosion going on over there as well. And as you say, Florida was very much, it's like they'd taken electro and early rave and elements of house and trance and done their own thing with it. So
do you know,
I think, yeah.
do you remember where you played?
I think it was a place called The Edge.
Yeah, Icy's
And
played, right?
yeah, that's right. I think we played for Icy.
Yeah.
And I think we also played at Firestone, I think. But The Edge was the first place. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the Edge because I used to go to Firestone,
Mm,
Oz, Beecham
yeah.
Theatre, and then obviously, you know, those three were like the biggest clubs. But
Yeah.
yeah, I saw Basement Twin.
Oh,
That's the
yeah.
first time I actually saw Dust Brothers. Icy and Josh Wink were actually playing inside, and
Hmm.
outside it was Peter Tall, Basement Twins, and
Yeah.
then of all people, Dust Brothers. And I'd
Right.
only heard Song to the Siren, and
Yeah.
they just blew everyone away.
Wow. Wow.
And it was just, it was something brand new for
Yep.
me, and I was just
Yeah.
like, that's it. But yeah, Florida just have such a healthy like
Yeah.
bass and break scene with,
Definitely.
Baby
Yeah.
Ann, Huda Hoodia.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that must have been very, very weird for you to DJ to 2,000 people for the first time in America
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
get,
It was I think I omitted to tell them that I hadn't DJed before. And the guy who got us over, this was subsequently after the Edge, put us up in his parents' house, paid for them to go away, and we had a swimming pool and we were there for a week. And LSD taught me to DJ. And before we'd gone over, I see when we went to Florida, breaks was dead in England. It had just died. It had become a dirty word. Once there were things like Sesame Street and stuff like that, where there were kind of very, very commercial, cartoonish hits, and it just died a death, as well as also the Tory government didn't. They were being got at by the breweries because people weren't drinking booze and etc. So it died. And then you go to Florida and there's this massive break scene, which was like, wow, hang on. And I just started TCR that was more, if anything, more sort of funk based house, like Express 2, like funk, because funk's where I came from. But to go over there and hear breaks everywhere, and then by the time I came back a second time, I had a dub plate of a place called Acid, and that was the perfect tune for Florida at that time. It was around the same time as Josh Wink's Higher State, and so it was a big tune over there and did really well for me, and also opened me up to Spain as well because they stuck with probably Florida kind of breaks, that kind of speed. So that introduced that track I made was influenced by Florida music, and then really that got me, to be honest, that got me gigs in America, Spain, and Australia. So that kind of launched me as a DJ, really. So I've got kind of Florida to thank for that.
Well, you started TCR in '93, right? And
Yeah,
94 was, I believe, when you came to Florida.
yeah, yeah. And I
So
think
yeah,
'95 was probably a place called Acid,
yeah,
if I remember rightly.
yeah. I mean, I can't believe, like, your first gig, you kind of blagged it. And
Yeah.
have you been blagging it now for 30 years?
Well, do you know what? I always saw myself as a producer who DJ'd,
Hmm.
and I did struggle with vinyl. I never really got on with vinyl. I was much better with CDJs. Um, and now I don't really DJ very much. And since that hasn't been my main source of income, when I do a gig, I'm a much better DJ. I guess I'm not doing it week in, week out with all the kind of aggro that goes with DJing every week. So um, I know, to be honest, 20, I would say 5 days a week, I'd be making music. I wouldn't be practicing DJing. So you'd see I'd say a proper DJ or a really good DJ. You'd see people in Florida who were amazing DJs, but they couldn't necessarily make good dance music. So I was always a producer who DJ'd. I'm trying to think. There was a Florida DJ. It was quite old school and unbelievable at scratching. And I remember having a chat with him while he was scratching, gigging, doing it on point, just really, really good. I never was that kind of guy. So I guess I was kind of over here. I don't know if it's the same in America, but you'd get people that had tunes that blew up would then get gigs. So it was a way of promotion. And then that was the route that I came from, rather than DJs who learnt their craft and got more gigs. I think there was a time where you were much more likely to get gigs if you'd put music out.
Well, I
And I've
remember,
always I've
you know,
always found it quite easy to make music. So
well, you've made incredible music over so many years, but as you allude to, like, that sometimes producers shouldn't DJ. BT, you remember BT?
yeah, yeah,
He's another one, absolutely amazing producer, but like can't DJ to save his life.
I've never heard him DJ, but that's the thing. You have to be careful because you could be booked as a headliner somewhere, and the DJs playing before and after you are technically far better. I think I got away with it, but yes, that happens because it's not just obviously not just a case of mixing records together. It's starting in one place and ending up somewhere else. So I've done gigs where my last tune, the next DJ started with the same tune because he wanted to do it at a slightly different speed and had worked out every track in his set. And I was never like that because everywhere I've ever played, everywhere like slightly different stuff. Like you go to Australia, the vibe in Melbourne was different to Sydney, and in Adelaide, I mean, Sydney was more party-like, kind of. Melbourne was more Nu Skool, and then Adelaide wanted it as bass heavy as you could. So the idea of touring around with one set never appealed to me. I'd rather kind of vibe off the crowd and what's going on.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on like the modern DJ then? Because a lot of talk has been obviously about the pre-recorded stuff, which to me is an absolute joke.
Does that happen?
It happens a lot of these
Really?
big festivals because of the visuals.
Yeah,
They sync the visuals up with the DJ set, and a lot of these big name DJs who are getting paid, 15, 20, 30,000 pounds to DJ, and they're just pressing a button and turning a few to look like doing stuff. That's ripping off. To me, I care about what the DJ plays, and if I'm going to pay 30, 40 quid to watch a DJ, they better be, stop putting hands in the air, stop taking selfies of yourself.
I know. I mean, I guess it's when you start feeling like maybe things have changed. And to me, a good DJ, you're in a dark room and people don't give a, can I swear?
Of course you can.
People don't give a fuck what you're wearing, what you look like, whatever. And it's all about what are you playing? Do you know your craft? And are you taking people on a bit of a journey? And I like dark clubs with none of the festivals have always been a bit, you've got to play the lowest common denominator stuff. But I mean, there's a guy called James Hype.
Yeah.
You heard of him?
Yeah.
And all it is look what I can do in the breakdown. I've learned my way around the machinery to make lots of funny noises and whip people up and do all this stuff and leap around. And then normally what comes in is an absolute bag of shite. And what you've done is you've fucked up a record because you've made it all about the breakdown and people have all got their phones out looking like, oh, look what this guy could do. And what's funny is if you read the comments and there'll be some slightly bitchy ones from real DJs going, wow, the way he pressed that button then was, to me, I'm just not into it. Not interested at all. I mean, it's great to use the gear and to, if you want to see a good DJ, go and see Carl Cox. Something like, look what I can do in the breakdown. And it's A, it's easy, and B, to try and pretend it's an art form and to make what you're doing more important than the music. I always found it difficult. If you put someone's tune on, say for example, do you remember Whopper by the Bass Bin Twins?
Yes.
So I've always been a massive Bass Bin Twin fan because I just think when I heard his early stuff in Florida, just the cheeky bootlegs and just everything about it. And I remember Whopper being a big tune in England. And I remember playing it and a guy came out going, man, you're fucking amazing. You're amazing. And I said, no, this tune is amazing. I've just put it on. Mm-hmm. Don't pat me on the back for that guy's work. And I've never, obviously being a producer, making music first, the idea that someone puts your tune on and are told that they're a god doesn't work for me. It's changed. You see people with the phones out, not getting into the tune. You'll see tracks where they're getting shorter. It's the whole TikTok generation, less attention span. They don't want some sort of groove based or whatever. It's a generation thing. It's not to say that it's not as good, but it isn't as good. That's to
Yeah.
say it, but it's nothing to do with the kind of dance music that I aspire to make, or really what I would class as decent electronic music. If it's all about a little hit, and then I've heard tracks in festivals where they'll play the breakdown of a tune, 40 seconds of the track, and then into another tune, and it is just little sound bites of music. I get it, because people are look at say my son's generation, they're on their phones all the time and they're looking for little hits. But I would rather have a sort of stretched out buzz rather than little kind of, oh, that's good, right, next one. I guess it's a generation thing.
I'm with you on that. I think with James Hype, I mean, it's whether it's pre-recorded or he does the set, it's just a minute or two of songs.
Yeah.
I don't understand it because obviously, I come from, like, I love longer mixes because
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
when
same
you
here.
now
Yeah.
if you want somebody that's technically gifted, James Zambiella,
Oh,
absolutely
unbelievable. Yeah.
fantastic. He
Yeah.
does all the stuff he does, but he does it
Yeah.
live. And
Absolutely.
he doesn't take, like, a little sample it where it's pre-recorded into the set.
Yeah.
And, like, every time I've heard Zambiella, it's a different set. Every time I
Yeah.
hear James Hype, it's the same set
Yeah. I
over.
mean, I'm not singling out. I don't know much. For some reason, he just got on my feed, and I just thought, you don't deserve adulation for what you're doing as a DJ. It's like a gimmick. And unfortunately, a lot of now you'll see, and DJs have, if a lot of stuff is pre-recorded, then they do need a gimmick. Otherwise, what are they going to do standing around for
Mm.
an hour doing nothing? So yeah, it's not my bag. But I've heard people go, oh, I've checked this guy out. Yeah, I have. It's awful, because he's just kind of thrown a tune downstairs and reassembled it, and then people think he's a genius. So
Well, that's the thing, Rennie. Right now, the whole superstar DJ. We look at DJs as rock stars now.
yeah.
They've got this entourage of, like, they've got to have 20 people behind them in a DJ
Oh
booth.
yeah, of course.
When
Yeah.
I play, and I'm sure when you DJ, I don't want anybody in the
No.
DJ booth
No.
apart from maybe the lighting guy and,
Yeah.
maybe a mate or two.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Oh
just
yeah.
see so many people back there,
Yeah.
and they have the phones, and I always say this. I try not to sound like an old fart,
Mm.
but put your damn phone down. Look,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe when you first get there, take a picture, with your mates and all that. But
Mm.
I think more and more clubs need to say no phone policy. Um,
Good idea. Yeah.
you have a
Yeah.
brain that
Yeah.
captures
Yeah.
memories and keep those memories for life. And I just think the whole phone thing is just making things more sterile.
Yeah.
It, people barely dance anymore.
I
I mean,
know. I know.
call dance music for a reason. You
Yeah.
dance, not
Yeah.
not camera music. But
Yeah.
anyways, we could go on and on and on and
Yeah.
on about that. But I'm sure we'll start getting people going, "Oh, you old farts." But
That's right. Yeah.
anyways, I want to talk to you about friction,
Sure.
because Adam Freeland, obviously Marine Parade, Tayo as well.
Yeah.
You all kind of started that. Who did coin the phrase "Nu Skool breaks"? Because I'm hearing it was you, but who?
To be fair, so one thing with Friction, there's also a very good friend of mine called Ian Williams, who is the promoter, who always kind of gets slightly left out because he wasn't musical. But we started making parties together as Mashed, where a group of people, maybe not all the same music, would play at parties, and we got Adam to play and we got Tyro to play. As far as what happened was, Big Beat was a dirty word in Britain because of, again, like rave, it got too commercial and became a joke. So this was music that was more influenced by drum and bass, but obviously slower. And both Adam and Tyre were in the kind of PR business and had very good contacts. And I actually think that we all sat around and brainstormed what we could call it. And I don't think any one person said, let's call it Nu Skool Breaks. I think it was almost by committee, if I'm honest. Probably if you ask the other two, they would say they thought of it, but I'm not saying anything about that. So it was literally, and the weird thing is, so we were looking at people like Uberzone as kind of mentors for that sound, and drum and bass, the kind of more futuristic drum and bass like John B and stuff like that. And there was hardly any of it around, which is why people then started making it and really enjoyed it, because it wasn't sort of party style breaks like Big Beat. It was a nod to the future and mixed with electro, and it was a sort of futuristic version of breakbeat. And you could say maybe it was a bit blokey at first, but it wasn't. When we started Friction, I would say it was 50%, 50-50 as far as gender-wise. So it was definitely not a bloke's music by the time that started. And it just was one of those things. It was a breath of fresh air. We had people like Carl Cox playing for almost nothing. We had people like Sasha hanging about in the DJ booth and chatting, and he clearly really liked it. I don't think he felt he was able to do sets playing that kind of music, but I remember someone at the Miami Winter Music Conference saying, check this out, Sasha's playing your track on a boat party, where lots of people liked it, not just in the break scene. And it for England, it was something new, and new is always a buzzword, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it kick-started, like Freak Nasty, B.L.I.M. And so many labels, Botcha and Scarpa.
Yeah.
It's just so many labels. And again, I've been a big breaks fan for a long time. And it really was like something different, something like the bass was so dirty.
Yeah.
It was just, it just hit you, but it still had that funk element to it.
Yeah. So what if you take people like B.L.I.M and Freak Nasty, I think around the time in England, it was hard to break through into drum and bass. So because there were X number of people that were earning a living, and they kind of were very protective over their own scene, probably for good reasons, but it was very hard to come through as a newbie. And so I think people like Freak Nasty and B.L.I.M had dabbled with drum and bass, and then thought, oh, hang on a minute, this is wide open, and you can put your own stamp and your own sound on it. So lots of people all came through bringing different flavors. I think that's why it was quite exciting. There were quite a few different flavors going on there rather than just one narrow sound.
Well, I mean, again, I talk about great producers and DJs, Meet Katie and
Sure.
Simon Elite Force come to mind, because they took the breaks, and added a little Nu Skool breaks, but they also did like the 4/4, which I found interesting, and they kind of melded that together. So I mean, you look at the scene today, I think it's still pretty healthy. I think breaks went away for a while, didn't they?
Yeah.
Kind of back underground. I mean, Spain is still massive. I know. They have that. Is it Breaks something festival that they do there?
I mean, southern Spain is probably the most fanatical place on earth for breaks. They have big parties every single weekend all down the south of Spain, and it's a weird thing where the average age has remained really young. So I've been going there for over 25 years, but the average age is about 20, maybe even younger. So I don't know what happens as they get older, but it's still a very popular scene there. It's quite different to anywhere else on earth, where what they really like is the breakdown rather than when it kicks off. They get off on the breakdown, and then when it kicks off, they kind of settle down and wait for the next breakdown. So it's quite weird. because that doesn't normally work that way, but it's always worked that way. So yeah, I think breaks pretty much died when dubstep took over. I think dubstep became this is a brand new thing. It's aimed at a different generation, and obviously dubstep mutated into various things that kind of weren't really dubstep, but that affected breaks. Breaks didn't keep up. Breaks suddenly sounded a bit stale, and then I think now I'd say I don't know what it's like in America, but dubstep's pretty much gone. But I think there are people now doing breaks kind of like they used to, where they might have elements of all kinds of stuff, which is when it's healthy, really. From techies, I mean, there's techno are using breaks, and house is sampling. House is using breaks, and it's also sampling old rave tunes. One of our old rave tune called Emotion was pretty much most of the tune was used by Audio Bullies. You heard of them?
Yeah.
And it was quite interesting because rave, we were sampling house music and trying to sneak it into being a rave track with breaks. And now house scene is sampling rave music and turning it into house. So it's sort of gone full circle. So there's a lot of it around. And actually, I've just recently got turned on to, I guess, what you'd call more progressive melodic stuff. There's a guy called Jerry Adams over here, country cockney, and he's like the John Peel of breakbeat. He's got almost every single breaks tune ever made, or he did have. So, for instance, I've asked him to find like an obscure mix that I've done before, and he will send it to you. But he's played me a load of stuff that's either house people or even techno people have made breaks, but with either more progressive or more melodic, and also breaks people doing it. And that sounds, I like it because I'm a keyboard player, and you suddenly think actually you can put some melodies in it, and it's not illegal to be musical.
No, of course not. Well, I mean, you've got the likes of Bicep and Framework who are kind of doing the
unbelievable
prog breaks. But I mean, sometimes, like, you know, I've listened to quite a few prog break set, and sometimes it all sounds a bit the
same. Yeah.
So I think when I want to hear breaks, I want to go from like funky to prog to
I agree.
Give me some nice funk. Like Crafty Cuts does really well with stuff like that. But I like a bit of everything. If you can have a 2 hour set, I
agree.
I still don't understand the hour sets. I never will. It's by the time you've started, you're finished already.
Well, is that a thing over there?
Yeah, still like these quick
it's
sets.
Because they want as many names on the flyer as possible, basically. But I agree, an hour and a half, 2 hour set, you can afford to go somewhere with it. If you play in Spain, 1 hour, and you've got to just rip the arse out of it. That's what they're hoping, and that's what we're expecting. Any subtlety, although there are tunes that you could get away with playing that you, like I was talking to someone the other day. So do you remember that track by PMT, Gyromancer? That's a sort of proggy track, and it's not a big, it's not kind of obvious. But I played that in Spain, and because there's a lot of light and shade, it worked really well. And then, funnily enough, I heard other people starting to play it in mixes. People are a bit scared, I think, of taking chances now, especially with an hour. Some of the gigs in Spain, some people will have 20 minutes, some locals, and they're driven 4 hours. And you imagine that, 20 minutes. Imagine if the other guy goes over. I mean, that's 5 tunes.
Yeah.
So it's a joke.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about, like, you've played Pete Tong's Essential Mix, but you've had 2, I think, of the biggest breaks mix CDs with Perfecto and with Renaissance. How did they come about? Because obviously Perfecto is and Renaissance is mostly like it was trance and progressive house.
I think there was a time when I'm trying to think the Renaissance. I think there was a time when progressive DJs were dropping Nu Skool breaks tracks. And I think you had people like Hybrid who were breaks, but prog. And I think that was spicing up some house sets. And I think maybe at some point they said, why don't we do, if it's a double mix CD, let's have a breaks mix. I mean, the Renaissance mix I did for that was shockingly badly mixed. But I remember a review going, look, I can't remember who's the other guy who did it.
Anthony Papa.
Yeah, who's like a, very serious pro DJ. But I remember them saying for all my cock-ups, but it had a rawness and was exciting. So, that I'll take that. They got interested in breaks. There was a flavour of breaks that they liked. And I guess almost any scene, you introduce a few new things and it suddenly sounds exciting. They genuinely got into it, and Renaissance started having breaks bits in their tents, in their festivals. And with Perfecto, I think Paul Oakenfold got into breaks, genuinely started to really enjoy them. I think one of obviously the Emit remix that I did, that a lot of trancey DJs played that. I remember Tiesto saying that I shared a taxi with him and he played it and Oakenfold was playing it. So it was one of those that crossed over. And with the Perfecto thing, it was like, yeah, we're into this. Massive, much more of a budget than a little break CD. And you could kind of choose various things and they just got behind it and they had enough power and pull where they could sort of get it out there. So it was a healthy thing, I think.
Well, with that, you brought up Emmett. I mean, one of the best breaks tracks, that I have in my collection, because you can still play it today. It will still go off. So as a producer, that has got to make you feel so good because you did that. But like as a producer, like where do you find your inspiration from? Because I always think like, if you are pigeonholed as like a breaks producer, where do you find new drum from? Where do you find, the inspiration to keep putting out the absolute quality? I mean, TCR, mate, is just every single, and it's not just because you're here, but I want to let you know that every single TCR release is absolutely bang
well. That's great. I mean, at the end of the day, thank you. That means a lot. But basically, at the end of the day, it's a question of using your ears, and had good people working with me who could find tracks. So, do you remember the Dopamine track?
Yeah.
Fuck, what's it called? Jesus Christ. Anyway, the girl that worked with me found it. I think someone played it somewhere and said, wow, what is this? And so we released it. And it was really having ears. I mean, I think I can hear a track and go, that's something special. But really, does it make you feel something, isn't it? If it makes you feel something, then you think, okay, that has done its job. So once you have a label and you're releasing your music, then to get other people's music released, you've already got all the channels to do it. And then it's a case of, all right, what's your philosophy? And obviously we were sort of a new school, maybe, darker than, say, Finger Licking, that was more commercial and funk and party. So we had our own niche. And so we attracted artists in that world and tried to, if someone gave you 4 tracks, you'd choose the best one and put that out rather than just put out as much as you can. So it was curated, which really all music needs to be. That's the danger of your Spotify, where if it's true that 60,000 tracks are uploaded every day, who's curating it? I mean, when they talk about playlists, but playlists are, who's deciding that? You've got to have stuff curated, otherwise it puts people off music, because how do they sort the wheat from the chaff? basically. So yeah, so we found it quite easy to choose to work with good people. I don't think any of them fell out with. I think they all got paid, and just encourage the best out of them, really, and find, cherry pick the tracks that you thought would work, basically.
Now you've collabed with a few people. Who are some people you would like to collab with if there was an opportunity?
Now, I would really like to work with some good singers and maybe good rappers, rather than thinking of electronic. I mean, the people I work with, like B.L.I M, I had a great time. Uberzone was probably the standout for just being an absolute fucking genius, where you play him a noise and he would draw it and then go and make it, absolute genius. I think it's a real shame. I hope he starts making music again. I know he's been mixing music and stuff, but he was just a unbelievably talented guy. But I would like to work with singers, really, and rappers, but in an ideal world, not have to have them in the same room because they're all mad. So what I'd really like is for someone to say, I've just heard that track. Can we option it and take it off you and I will sing on it? And that would be not necessarily my having to be in, because I don't know how many singers you work with, but they're a one-off breed. Mind you, I'm not doing a very good sales pitch, am I? They're all mad. No, I'd love to do that. I'd love to make my music available to singers for a collaboration. But as far as electronic, the problem is if you can work with people who are absolute studio wizards, which is great, but you have to have, say with Uberzone, he was all about sound. He didn't particularly care for doing arrangements. I like doing that. He could play stuff in, but he's not a keyboard player. I like playing keyboards and stuff. So if you're in the studio with someone and they feel like they have to also mimic or play everything you do, so that they've put their stamp on it, it's a bit competing. You need to have two different jobs, ideally. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I've talked to a few producers and they're very obviously hands-on. So, like you've got Sasha with Charlie May, and you've got to have somebody at the controls and just go, shoot me ideas and I'll do the stuff.
Yeah.
Leave me the fuck alone and let me do this. In my is that how it works for you? You've got to be.
Well, no, because I'm not really the techie. I'm not really the techie guy. I'm an ideas man. I would happily work with. In fact, I am working with a guy who's an extremely good producer and production. I'll very happily let someone mix something down and make it sound amazing. But I guess when I was in rhythm section, there was a queue of 4 of us at the keyboard. So we would all have 2 or 3 minutes to come up with a riff. And then the next guy would have a go, and then the next guy. And so if you listen to it now, sometimes you will hear 4 different riffs, the same sound, because we all wanted to be part of it. And that slightly competitive, or I've got to put something in as well, doesn't really work for me. But I'm not a studio boffin. I'm sitting here. My studio is a keyboard, 2 speakers, a laptop, and a bigger screen. That's it. And I'll very happily play other stuff in and mix live things. But I haven't got a wall of stuff. I think often the people that are really technically gifted at producing stuff aren't always prolific, or they don't always have an ear for the musical side, rather than what sounds, amazing mixed down or something. I thought a really good example of that, you remember, Plastic Dreams.
Yeah, JD.
Right, so that's an amazing track. Funnily enough, it sort of breaks and house, but the production hasn't is not really that amazing. The keyboards aren't really that amazing. In fact, he kind of does an organ solo that's a bit all over the place. But the vibe is fantastic. And that track, you could play that in a breaks club, in a house club, you name it. It's just a classic tune. So I've always thought a really good tune is more important than perfection, personally. So,
Well, Rennie, let's get into the juicy stuff.
here we go. Yeah, go on.
Come
Go
on,
on.
I'm going to roll my sleeves up.
So let me start. Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
And I'm asking this because I've asked Abel Fingerlicking, who's a Liverpool fan.
Yeah.
What's the route? See, so my son, one sports Man U, one sports Liverpool, and the one who supports Liverpool is a massive Gerrard fan. So I don't hate Liverpool. I'm from London. I'm from Kent. I haven't got that animosity, and I kind of rate a few clubs like Newcastle, Liverpool, Man U because they're real and their fan base is real, and they've got to be huge because of their fans, rather than your cities and Chelsea's. But what's the root? It's not just that you're close to each other. What caused the hatred?
Um, that's a good question. I
Because
mean,
I've been told something, but I wanted to know if you know it.
for me, I just think it stems from a bit of jealousy when United started winning a lot.
Yeah,
And I mean, back in the 80s, us and United used to have, flat out brawls.
yeah,
Um, we come off the train, United fans are right there. Uh,
mm,
but I've grown as you grow up, you grow less,
yeah,
less. I don't know, being toxic. As a
yeah,
16-year-old,
yeah,
I'd come
yeah,
off the train ready for a scrap because I knew it
yeah,
was. Now, I know better. I mean, both our cities, Liverpool and Manchester, are the same.
mm,
We have middle class, and we're very shipping lanes
yeah,
from Liverpool to Manchester. So we're very the same, but yet not. If that makes much
yeah.
sense. Um,
Shall I tell you what I heard?
yeah, go ahead.
So what I heard was the obviously Manchester was the where all the cotton mills were, yeah, and the cotton came over from America to Liverpool, and obviously at the docks there would be a price to pay for it being landed and go through the docks. And what I heard is that Manchester built a canal that went from the sea to Manchester, and so then it bypassed a lot of the docks, and so it affected Liverpool economically. And so someone said that's where the visceral hatred came because it was literally they've taken away our livelihood. Apparently, at one point they blockaded it so that Manchester wasn't getting any cotton.
Hmm.
So I'd heard it came back from there. I don't know if that's true or not, but
I would say it's true because I remember my granddad trying to, I mean, this is again, this podcast is an ode to me granddad because he tried to
sure.
tell me all these old stories, and
Mm,
obviously a 15-year-old kid doesn't
right.
want to listen to their granddad.
No.
He took me to my first match at 6, uh,
Mm,
and then up until I was about 15, 16 is when I stopped going with him. But yeah, he tried
yeah.
to tell me something like that as well, which makes sense.
Yeah.
That anger, you're taking away my livelihood.
Yeah.
But from what possessed you, from a young lad from Kent to
Yeah.
support Man United.
Um, Bobby Charlton. So when I started playing football, I was inside left, and Bobby Charlton was the most kind of famous in. He played inside left, and you had Georgie Best. So in that era, they were just. I like. I loved the way Bobby Charlton played. The way he would take shots from miles away, left footer, and I think I started supporting them from then. I used to kiss the TV when he was on. which was a bit weird. But so I supported them then. And then, you get a bit older, and it wasn't like I could tell you much about what was going on. But then having two kids, watching them play football each week, and then all the kids have teams, and in London it's mainly Arsenal or Chelsea, and some really disturbed people would even support Tottenham. Yeah. Hi, Aston. And my kind of love affair with Man United was sort of rekindled a bit, and one son supported them and one Liverpool, but we started watching it more and more and more. And now I've got more and more into it, and listening to the bloody podcast and the United Stand and etc. But so I came from then, and it never bothered me that I'm not from Manchester. The weird thing with Manchester and Liverpool a bit is that obviously they're massively world famous. So if you think of the kind of love that's come out for Klopp, even on the United Stand, they were saying, obviously Liverpool scum, but what amazing managers, transcended whatever. And they're real teams. There's just a few real teams. City aren't a real team. They're a joke. They're great, but they're a joke. Chelsea weren't. Most of the people around me, because I was in West London, were Chelsea supporters. Seemed to be from around the time that Abramovich took them over and kind of took them somewhere by buying their wealth. So I'm glad that I support a kind of real team with a massive history, basically.
Well, it's nice to hear you say the respect for Klopp, because even though like I've just grown up, can't stand Fergie, that I respect him for what he did for United, because he brought you to the top. I do feel like he kind of the infrastructure of United when he left kind of went to the shitter.
Oh,
yeah.
You mean because the guy signing off on the guy signing people was actually a banker and who knew fuck all about football? Is that what you mean? Because
yeah.
Unbelievable. I mean, he got out. I reckon he could see the writing on the wall, Fergie, with City, and with the fact that the Glazers weren't going to put any money into the. They were taking money out, and the way I still don't understand how they managed to buy a club with no money and then saddle them with debt. The only good, and we've been in the wilderness since then. We've getting people on unbelievably high wages, just spending badly. I think the new guys, opposite, they've poached number 2 from City, Dan Ashworth. They're getting rid of 250 people. They're not going to pay big wages. It's going the right way. It'll take a few years, but yes, it must have been nice to be a Liverpool supporter for the last 10 years, looking at United. Imploding.
Winning comes and goes, doesn't it? It comes in cycles.
Fergie was desperate to knock you guys off your perch because you'd won loads, and that was his motivation. And obviously now, if it wasn't for City, you would have had a good run. But City are the kind of, had you compete with them, I mean, I have to say, you'd have to be a pretty good team. Imagine it, say, like in the FA Cup, if you beat Liverpool and City. Oh, no, that was us, wasn't it? Yeah.
Ah, cheeky.
Yeah, there you go. It's not all going to be... Yeah, anyway, but sad that we were acting like we'd won the World Cup. But it can be done. But City, I think that was one of the reasons Klopp left, I would say. How can you keep abreast of that without it just taking its toll? Because there's no let-up. What happens when Salah goes in a year or two's time? You've got to replace, and you've got to try and compete with... I mean, let's be honest. Let's just hope some of those 115 charges stick, because if they get punished for cheating, it'll be fantastic.
It will. I mean, I do feel sorry for the proper Man City fans, you know, that went to Main Road when they were in.
Oh, I met him once. What's his name?
Probably Terry Tom or something.
Yeah, yeah, I do as well. Yeah, yeah,
You know, the proper ones that were with City in League Two.
yeah,
I just don't understand the FA. You know, you've got Everton that had, and
yeah,
not Forest, who had one, you know, against them, and they
yeah.
got points deducted. City, because they have so much money, they're just
That's
going to
why.
appeal it, appeal it, appeal it,
That's why
get the
I
top
think
players.
they're worried that they can't match them financially as far as legally goes. So that's the problem. In the end, they'll probably do a rap on the knuckles kind of deal.
Mm.
But you know, they've cheated. The what, $250 million for Etihad to sponsor the stadium, and then you find out they're part of the same family. It's
Mm.
cheating.
Yeah.
And also, look at this. They won the treble. Who gave a shit? If it had been any other English club, you know, it would have been a massive thing. But people go, oh, yeah, City won. You know, look, I think Guardiola's bought 50 players since he's been there, or something like that. So it just doesn't mean as much, does it?
Yeah, that's why nobody cares. You know,
No, that's right. That's why
you know,
people think, oh, I'd rather City win than Arsenal because then it doesn't count. So yeah, I'm very, very glad that we weren't bought by Qatar. I'm slightly worried that there wasn't more pushback about it, but the idea of being another state-owned club, just it's just not nice, is it?
I'm the same, Rennie. You know, FSG have their flaws, you know, but they've
Yeah,
rectified it. Maybe they don't spend as much as like what the Twitter brigade
yeah,
want us to spend.
yeah,
But I'll tell you what, you know, I'd rather win trophies the way we've won them rather
yeah,
than
yeah,
fancy any day of
yeah,
the week, you know. And people might laugh at me and go, well, you know, City's cabinet's full. Yeah, it is.
yeah,
You know, they cheated to get there.
yeah,
So it
exactly.
annoys me.
Yeah,
And I'm like, at least I have something in common with United.
yeah,
United, you know, I like how they're going to go about it now. I think it was a really poor decision by United to bring Ronaldo back because, as we've seen in the
yeah.
Euros, he makes it about himself. And
Yeah, I agree. I
it
agree.
just you spend so much money to bring him back with the wages. He disrupted your team so
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
So I see what I like now about United. I can't believe I'm saying this is
Carry
bring
on, carry on.
these young lads, Manu,
Oh, amazing.
Dio,
Yeah,
Garnacho,
yeah,
three lads that will
yeah,
bleed for that
yeah.
badge. That's
But
what.
that's all you want. That's what you want, don't you? I mean, if you saw him for England, he plays like he's 28, he's 18, and
Mm.
he's got a maturity and he's just a great player. Um, yeah, I agree. I think it's going in the right way. And um, yeah, just City. And now Chelsea, your Chelsea supporters moan that it's not fair what City do. And it's like, hang on, what were you doing with Abramovich? Um, so, but having said that, how good is Palmer? Jesus Christ.
Well, I mean,
He was a City reject, wasn't he?
yeah, I can't believe like Pep let him go. I mean, if he saved Chelsea's season last season.
Yeah, yeah,
You see him at the Euros, and he's just composed for a young lad, and that's what you want to see. You know, like I mean, for Liverpool, you know, Trent
yeah.
still boggles my mind how Southgate can't fit him in that team. You know,
But isn't Trippier playing out of position in Trent's position? Is that right?
no, what Walker is playing right back, but Trippier, who is a right back, is playing left back, who is right
Oh yeah,
foot. So I would have
yeah,
thought because Kyle Walker can play on the left,
yeah. It's a
why not?
no-brainer.
Why not put Trent? Because Spain, Germany, Italy, I'm sure would put Trent in the team. Southgate just
But also he's attacking. The fact is, Southgate is so defensive. It's the best British English squad we've had ever, or since I've been alive. And he's making them look. Some of them look average. And it's like, so I asked a Liverpool fan last night watching the game, why is he not playing him? He said, oh, he's too attacking. And it's like, oh, yeah, don't play that. And also, why would you wait till the 80th minute before you bring Palmer on and Watkins? Yeah. And then Palmer passes to him and he scores, and people are going, oh, look at Southgate. Like, no, 80 minutes he waited before he made the change that every armchair fan could go, why have you not, especially Palmer, I'd have him playing, he should be playing at least like every game, at least from 60 minutes onwards, shouldn't he? Very odd, very odd.
I'm really surprised that Chelsea were the only team ready to come in for Palmer. I really think people didn't know how good that lad is.
How much did they pay?
I don't know.
40 or something?
Yeah, it was on the cheap.
He got 2 goals against us in 3 minutes. And I thought, Jesus Christ, this guy's amazing. And he kick-started their season and ours started going down. I did wonder where we were when he was being sold, because he's very exciting. And it's good to see young, exciting players, isn't it? Like the 16-year-old for Spain.
Oh, yeah.
16. Jesus Christ.
Well, we're about to sign a 15-year-old from Chelsea. They're supposed to. I'm tired of like people going, he's the next Messi or he's the next blah blah. You have to give a 15-year-old time, but he looks like he's a top talent. And Chelsea.
What's his name?
I had it written down.
Anyway, I'll look out for it.
Yeah, he just looks the real deal. He's been playing in the under-21s and he's 15 years old.
Wow,
so that shows, and Chelsea made a mistake. He just saw that, I guess, Liverpool give youngsters a chance. Chelsea don't. They just buy them and then they ship them out and they loan them out and come back. But no, I like how I think that's the future, is to look at your academy, start bringing these kids up. So, you don't have to pay these crazy prices, because football, we all know, is about greed now. It's all about money. Who has the most money wins trophies. We know that. It's maybe fall out of love with football a little bit, Still passionate about it, but, the money does kind of ruin things.
But I agree. The academies, I'm not sure, but I think that's one of the reasons why Mount might struggle, because people didn't understand why they bought him. But then because Manu came through, really, I would say he's a £50 million player already, wouldn't you, Manu?
Yeah, 100%.
And he's displaced. You wouldn't play Mount instead of him. I don't know if they're the same position or not, but I agree. That's the academy. You bring him through, you've got almost free players who will fight for playing, because they can't believe their luck as well. So I agree, it's more exciting when you see that. I mean, we've got a pretty good record at that. I think we've nearly always had an academy player in the first team for 50 years or something.
So what's your thoughts on Ten Hag as you move forward? He has won 2 trophies in the last years. The FA Cup win against Man City was huge. Because it was make or break, I think, for him.
Yeah, I agree.
If he didn't win that, I think he would have lost his job. But he seems like he's getting it together. You've got Radcliffe taking over. Your infrastructure, they're going to work on the stadium. They're already doing, the training ground. What's your real expectations for this upcoming season?
He had to be given another year, because if he didn't, they would get someone else in and they would give everyone a chance. He knows who to try and get rid of. I think he's a very good manager. I don't think, where someone like Klopp also had the kind of charisma and clearly had the adulation of not only the fans but also the players. You got the impression that he was almost like a father figure. You can put his arm around him and say, right, you're doing this wrong, you've got to do this. I think Ten Hag is a bit more clinical. So I don't think he's just not that kind of warm guy, but I think he's very good. And actually, when they were talking about his future, he said, if they don't want me, I'll go and win somewhere else. I think he had the players who couldn't play the way he wanted to play, so he had to be pragmatic. Personally, if I'd been him, I would have said, right, let's just play on the counter while we've got all these. I mean, 60 injuries we had, 60 different injuries last year. So people like Shearer are saying, well, everyone's had injuries. 60. It's unbelievable. Luke Shaw barely played, and look how much England have missed him. So I think got to give him another year. And next year, quite a lot of managers, I think you guys wanted Alonso, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I mean, because obviously, he's a legend at the club. But I think he made the right decision for himself. Leverkusen were absolutely amazing last season.
Yeah.
And I think he wants to carry that on. But I think he's looking probably at the Madrid.
Well, that's what I was going to say. What I heard was Ancelotti is leaving next year, and they've probably said to Alonso, wait for us. But next year there'll be a lot more. I mean, the worrying thing for us, when I thought it was pretty naff kind of talking to other managers and not, maybe they'd said to him, look, we've just bought the place, part of it. We're going to look at everything. So I think it's great he's got another year. There was no one else there who you'd go, oh, let's get him instead. There was no one else available anyway. And give someone 3 years. We've only won 2 trophies, but I think first year, what were we, third or something? And we haven't got the right players. We've inherited paying eye-watering, I mean, more expensive squad than City's. How much does Salah get for Liverpool?
About 350k.
How much? 350. Yeah. But we've got 4 or 5 players on that. Including
I can't believe Martial is still in your squad.
Well, he's not. He's gone now, hasn't he?
Well, he's gone now, but I can't believe he was still.
He was earning more than Harry Kane. But that's the thing, is the people at the top, the money people, were terrible at their job. Because they didn't factor in what happens if you want to sell someone. No one, say like Sancho, I think 300 grand. No one wants to pay those wages. So where does he go? We've spent 70 million on him. It didn't work. He had this weird spat with a manager where he probably had a point going, why do you play Anthony all the time? Why did you buy this guy for 80 million? Why am I not getting a go? But obviously what he did in public was dumb. And if he'd said, shit, sorry about that, because of Anthony's problems, he would have been playing. But 300 grand a week. He's not even playing. He didn't play for 4 months sitting there. So the money we've wasted. Ten Hag will I reckon we'll see 8 people go at least, and probably get 4 or 5 people. When we had our full squad, everyone playing, we were a pretty good team, but we never had that last year. If we then improve it by about 30%, then we're going in the right direction, definitely. Well, I hope we do more getting younger people. I don't want to bring in people for 80, 90 or 100 million that are already huge names. I want people like Manu, and I want the younger guys who are coming through that are hungry, who you can see. If you take Spain, clearly the best side in the Euros, they're not full of stars, are they?
No.
They've got nothing like the stars we have, but they're playing as a unit. You can get, look at that year that Leicester won. You can get 11 people playing together that know their job and know what they're doing, and they can beat better players. I know it. I play quite a lot of tennis, and you can play with a partner and you know each other's game, and you can beat 2 individuals who are way better than you, who don't play properly together and don't have a kind of understanding of what each other does. So football's the same, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Look at France. They didn't look that brilliant, did they?
No, they looked all over the place, but obviously, Mbappe runs, you heard at PSG, he would pick the team. That's ridiculous. Yeah. I'm sorry, but I would go, you can piss off. I don't care if you're the best.
I agree. You can't have it based around. going back to what you said about Ronaldo, unfortunately, it seemed like wow, but actually it was all about him. And he'd be just standing there, not tracking back and moaning about not getting the ball and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'd rather have 8 sort of hungry young guys who are pretty good than 3 or 4 older guys who just got massive egos.
Well, what's your expectations for this season?
Top 4, really. I mean, there's no reason why we couldn't win the Europa League, but we need to be top 4. I mean, that's increasing. It used to be a shoe-in, didn't it, for all of us? But really, you got City, Liverpool, Arsenal, probably Tottenham, um, probably Newcastle, us. You know, there's 7 teams that could all do it. I think you should be all right. It's whether you have a dip post Klopp, whether people leave and what your new guy. I mean, Klopp had to have a few seasons to get it going, didn't he?
Yeah, first 2 seasons, was tough. I mean, he came in October.
Yeah,
Rodgers got sacked. So, yeah, first 2 seasons, but, after losing the Champions League, then winning the Champions League, the year after we won the league.
yeah, yeah,
So, and that was a core group of players that
yeah.
I think he kept a bit too long, like the Hendersons, the
Oh,
Mill
yeah,
kept them too long and they should have been gone like a season before. But Slot's got a new slate.
yeah,
If he can keep the spine of the team, which I think he will, which is Virgil, Salah, Trent,
yeah,
and just bring the kids through. Like
yeah, yeah,
Connor Bradley, wow,
yeah,
absolutely amazing. Like that young lad, Irish lad, has just blown me away. 18 years old. You've
yeah.
got Ben Doak coming through, Dan's coming through. Slot looks like he's kind of like Klopp in the way he lets youngsters
Mm,
prove themselves. So yeah, I
mm,
mean, my expectations for Liverpool are kind of the same as yours.
yeah, yeah,
Let's get a good run in the Champions League. Let's get top 4 and just build on it.
yeah, yeah.
I'm not going to be like, oh, we're going to win the league this year. We're going to win the Champions League. I'm being a bit of a more of a realist again.
Mm,
I just get back top 4, good run in the cups.
yeah.
Get the youngsters bedded in, and we'll see where we're at. I think it'll be an interesting season.
The thing is, you've. When did you win the title?
2020
So it's
COVID.
interesting. If you took City out, you would have won a few, wouldn't you?
Yeah, we would have won
But
two more.
it's just interesting to know what will happen with them because if they do get deduction and trouble, then it will be because also Guardiola will leave. He's
Of
only got one
course.
year left, and it will just be what you really want is their owners to decide that it's a plaything that they don't need anymore, and then they can
Hmm.
bugger off. But it'd be awesome if they get done,
Yeah,
frankly.
we'll see. My last question for you, and
Sure.
I'd like to ask all my musician guests,
Yeah.
what would be your ultimate festival lineup for a Friday headliner, Saturday headliner, Sunday headliner, alive or dead? And it's not just DJ, it's bands.
Okay. Um, hmm. And you're talking about kind of seeing people in their prime.
It's
Yeah.
whoever
Okay.
you.
So I would say Miles Davis, just because cool as fuck and the music he made was just next level. I would say Prince for the same reason. I did see him just as he was blowing up and it was incredible. I would say Stevie Wonder because he was such a kind of groundbreaker, first guy pretty using samplers and stuff and made amazing music. It was also really commercially successful because it was so good. I'm talking about pre the sort of happy birthday type schmaltzy stuff. And then if you're talking about something clubby, I'd say Chase and Status because I've always liked drum and bass. I've never really made any because although it came from rave, I feel like such a incredibly produced music. You can't dip your toes in it. you either have to go, like a friend of mine said, who was a very good breaks producer, said he had to relearn everything when he started making drum and bass. But Chase and Status, as far as drum and bass, blow your fucking head off. They're masters at it. They absolutely. Have you seen that Boiler Room sessions?
Yeah, I have.
I mean, it's just, it is what it is. You're not getting subtlety, but as far as futuristic badass music based on breakbeats, that's it, really. And if you were going back for the rave version of that blew up, it would be the Prodigy that played on the same bill as them when he was blowing up. And that was just occasionally you get people that make huge tracks, and they're also very good producers, and they just know which buttons to press as far as that goes. So yeah, that.
Well, I'd pay for that, definitely.
And also I would pay money not to have any finger licking artists anywhere near the festival. I would pay several million.
I love it. All Spurs fans.
Yeah. And yeah, all that Man City, or Terry, the Man City fan. But I'm joking about finger licking. I invented a beef against them.
I know they're such like.
Yeah. Do you know the first one I did was in Brighton? I took a picture of a seagull on Brighton seafront, which is where finger licking were based, and I photoshopped in that it had a shit right on the railings, and then I don't know what I thought of it, and with the seagull I put an arrow and said TCR, and then an arrow at the shit and said finger licking, and it just started it all, and people thought it was serious. In the end, Abel rang up going, "What's going on? What's the problem?" I said, "Nothing. I was just bored." And so in the end, people were sending in stuff going, "What about this?" So I didn't need to do it anymore. So yeah.
Well, Rennie, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Great to chat.
Even though you're a United supporter, but it's all right. I love.
That's very sweet of you.
I love football in its whole complete storyline, but again, it is an honour for me to have people like yourself on, because
I'm very pleased to be honest.
You're part of my musical landscape.
Great.
So, thank you everyone for listening. Please like and subscribe. Put your notifications on. Like I said earlier on, I will put some links to Rennie's music.
Yes, send the podcast to me, the link as well.
Definitely will.
So what's going on with? Can I just ask what's going on with the Imelda Marcos thing? Are they all your shoes?
Yeah, all Adidas, and that's
unbelievable. It's incredible.
That's only 1/3.
Jesus.
So 90% of those have tags on them. I've got all the original boxes.
Oh, so you're not being a typical. All right, you're not being what some United say about Scousers, that they would be thieving.
No. They're
all paid for. They're all paid for.
Well, some of them, yeah. Some of them got given, some of them got gifted.
Fair enough. Is that what they called now?
Yeah, it's gifted.
Nice.
Until next time, we'll see you later.
Thank you very much. Good to chat.